For a very long time, I believed that my brain was something already fully formed. I thought personality was fixed, that the ability to focus varied from person to person. That discipline was something you either had or did not have. I looked at people who were persistent and consistent and assumed they were born that way, and I was not. And if you do not have it, the best thing to do is simply accept it. That belief stayed with me for many years, until one day I encountered a truth that quietly shifted everything inside me. It was not a shocking discovery, just a very short sentence. But once I understood it, I could not return to my old way of thinking. The brain is not designed to tell the truth. It is designed to conserve energy and keep you safe. When I truly understood that, many things from my past suddenly connected. Why I always chose the easier path even when I knew it was wrong. Why I procrastinated even when I clearly understood the consequences. Why I made countless promises to myself but kept very few of them. Not because I was weak, but because my brain was doing exactly what it was built to do. The brain does not care about who you want to become in the future. It cares about whether you are safe and in less pain right now. And from that perspective, many bad habits start to make perfect sense. Scrolling on the phone when tired, avoiding difficult tasks, choosing quick rewards. All of these are paths of least resistance. And the brain loves such paths. What made me begin to question the way I was living was not a major failure. It was a very strange feeling. The feeling that I was being led rather than choosing. I woke up, worked, entertained myself, procrastinated, then went to sleep. Every day looked the same. But when I looked back, I could not remember making any conscious decisions. It felt as if an invisible hand was pressing buttons for me. A scientist once said that most human behavior does not come from intention, but from habit. When I heard that, it made me uncomfortable. Because if that was true, then many things I called choices were actually just reflexes. And if they were reflexes, then who was programming them? I started paying attention to very small things. When I picked up my phone, what distracted me, at what point I gave up. And I realized something that made me feel cold. My brain was being trained every single day, not by big decisions, but by repeated actions I no longer noticed. Every time I chose to procrastinate, I was teaching my brain that avoidance was safe. Every time I quit halfway, I was reinforcing the pathway of giving up. Every time I sought quick rewards, I was lowering my tolerance for discomfort just a little more. There was no dramatic moment, only silent accumulation. And this is where my understanding truly changed. I used to think discipline was something you used to fight the brain, but the truth is the opposite. Discipline is how you retrain the brain to serve you instead of dragging you along your lowest instincts. The brain learns through repetition. It does not care what you know. It cares what you do often enough. You can clearly understand what is right, but if you do not act on it, the brain will not update. On the other hand, you might not believe you are a disciplined person, but if you repeat disciplined actions long enough, the brain will rewrite the story of who you are. From that moment, I stopped asking why I could not change. I started asking a much more frightening question. Who am I training my brain to become every day? That question is not comfortable because it leaves no room to escape. It places responsibility on what you do when no one is watching. And when you truly face that question, you realize an irreversible truth. The brain is never standing still. It is either being strengthened or being weakened. There is no neutral state. This is the foundation of real discipline, not grand determination, not promises, but the understanding that every small action leaves a physical trace in your brain. Those traces will determine how easy or difficult life becomes for your future self. In the next part, we will go deeper into the greatest contradiction most people face, why you know so much yet still do not act, and why knowledge, when not paired with discipline, becomes an even more subtle trap than ignorance. There is a painful contradiction that almost everyone carries. You know what you should do, yet you do not do it. You know exercise is good. You know focus matters. You know discipline would improve your life. And still, day after day, you act against that knowledge. This gap between knowing and doing slowly eats away at self-respect. Many people believe the solution is more information, more books, more videos, more advice. But knowledge is not the missing piece. In fact, too much knowledge without action creates a new kind of paralysis. You begin to confuse understanding with progress. You feel productive while consuming information, but nothing in your real life changes. The brain loves this illusion. Learning feels safe. Acting feels risky. Learning gives you dopamine without discomfort. Acting demands effort and uncertainty. So the brain quietly pushes you toward preparation instead of execution. You think you are improving, but you are only postponing the moment of friction. A researcher once said that the brain cannot tell the difference between imagining an action and doing a small part of it. This is why watching motivational content feels good. It gives you the emotional reward of progress without requiring transformation. But afterward, when it is time to act, the energy is gone. This is where discipline must enter in a very specific way, not as forcing yourself to do hard things, but as cutting off escape routes. Discipline is not about pushing harder. It is about removing the option to drift. Look closely at your own patterns. When do you usually give up? Not at the beginning, but after the initial excitement fades. That is the critical point. When novelty disappears, the brain asks a simple question: why continue? If there is no clear structure, it chooses comfort by default. Highly disciplined people understand this moment well. They do not rely on motivation to carry them through. They rely on pre-decided rules. Rules that were created when the mind was calm, not when it was tired. When the moment comes, there is no debate. The decision has already been made. This is why routines are powerful, not because they are impressive, but because they eliminate choice. Choice is expensive. Every choice drains mental energy. When you remove the need to decide, action becomes lighter. Think about brushing your teeth. You do not negotiate with yourself. You do not wait to feel inspired. You simply do it, not because it is pleasant, but because it is non-negotiable. Discipline works best when it operates at that level. Quiet, automatic, boring. But to reach that level, the brain must be trained gradually. If you demand too much too soon, the brain resists. It perceives threat. It looks for escape. And when escape is found, the habit collapses. This is why small actions are not trivial. They are strategic. When you complete a small task consistently, you are teaching the brain something crucial, that you are someone who finishes. That effort does not always lead to pain. That discomfort is survivable. Each time you stop early, you teach the opposite lesson. That quitting brings relief, and relief is deeply reinforcing. The brain does not remember your long-term goals. It remembers the relief. So discipline, at its core, is not about intensity. It is about continuity, about staying long enough for the brain to date its predictions. Once the brain learns that effort does not equal danger, resistance begins to fade. In the next part, we will talk about the most powerful but misunderstood tool of mental training: discomfort. Not as punishment, but as calibration. And how learning to stay with mild discomfort can permanently change how your brain responds to effort. Discomfort is often misunderstood. Most people see it as a signal to stop. Pain means danger. Boredom means something is wrong. Resistance means you are not meant for this path. But this interpretation is exactly what keeps the brain weak and easily distracted. The truth is, discomfort is not an enemy. It is a training signal. It is how the brain learns where its current limits are. And without ever touching discomfort, those limits never move. Think about the first time you tried to concentrate deeply for more than a few minutes. The restlessness, the urge to check your phone, the feeling that something was missing. That sensation is not proof that you cannot focus. It is proof that your brain is not trained yet, and the only way to train it is to stay just a little longer than it wants. The brain is a prediction machine. It constantly predicts how much effort something will cost and whether that cost is worth it. If every time discomfort appears you immediately escape, the brain updates one rule: discomfort equals danger, avoid it. But if you stay, even briefly, the brain updates a different rule. Discomfort is survivable. This is the most important shift. You are not trying to become fearless. You are teaching the brain that it does not need to panic so quickly. A neuroscientist once explained that self-control is not about suppressing desire. It is about extending the delay between impulse and action. That delay can be very short, just a few seconds. But within that delay, new neural pathways begin to form. This is why small doses of voluntary discomfort are so powerful. Doing something slightly difficult when you could easily avoid it. Finishing a task even when it becomes boring. Staying present when the urge to escape arises. These moments are invisible to others, but they are shaping your brain in very real ways. And here is something most people never realize. The brain adapts not to the intensity of discomfort, but to the duration. You do not need to suffer greatly. You need to stay a little longer, again and again. Over time, what once felt unbearable becomes neutral, and what was neutral becomes easy. This is how discipline is built without force. Not by heroic effort, but by repeated exposure. The brain learns through experience, not instruction. There is a dangerous myth that discipline means doing painful things all the time, that you must grind, suffer, and push relentlessly. That mindset often leads to burnout, not because people are weak, but because they confuse growth with punishment. Real mental training respects recovery. It balances discomfort with rest. The goal is not to exhaust the system, but to expand it. Like a muscle, the brain needs challenge, then recovery, then challenge again. Without this rhythm, discipline collapses. If you look at people who maintain focus and consistency for years, you will notice something subtle. They are not constantly forcing themselves. They have learned how to flirt with discomfort without overwhelming themselves. They stop before resentment builds. They push just enough to grow, then step back. This is why all or nothing approaches fail. When you go all in, you create a sharp spike of discomfort. The brain reacts with fear, and once fear enters, it remembers. The next time you try, resistance appears earlier and stronger. Instead, discipline should feel almost underwhelming at first. So small that your ego dismisses it. But that is exactly why it works. Because the brain does not feel threatened. It does not activate defense. It allows repetition. And repetition is what rewires everything. You begin to notice a quiet change. Tasks that once required a mental battle now require less negotiation. Focus comes faster. Procrastination weakens, not because you are more motivated, but because the brain no longer predicts pain as strongly. This is the moment many people describe as becoming disciplined. But what actually happened is simpler. The brain learned a new pattern. In the final part, we will bring everything together. How understanding the brain, discomfort, and repetition leads to a form of discipline that no longer relies on force. A discipline that feels natural, almost inevitable. When all the pieces come together, something very important becomes clear. Discipline is not a personality trait. It is not a moral quality, and it is not a punishment you impose on yourself. Discipline is the natural outcome of how your brain has been trained over time. Once you understand this, the struggle changes shape. You stop asking why you are not disciplined enough. You start asking what patterns you are reinforcing every day. Because the brain does not argue with logic, it follows repetition. Most people try to change their lives by making dramatic decisions. New routines, strict schedules, extreme standards. They believe intensity will compensate for inconsistency, but intensity fades quickly. What remains is the system you fall back into when motivation disappears. That system is already shaping your future self, whether you are aware of it or not. When you wake up and immediately reach for your phone, you are training distraction. When you quit as soon as something feels boring, you are training avoidance. When you promise yourself something and do not follow through, you are training distrust toward your own words. These are not harmless habits. They are instructions you are giving your brain. The good news is this: the same mechanism that weakens you can also strengthen you. The brain does not judge, it adapts. Every time you choose to stay with a task just a little longer, you are teaching patience. Every time you finish something small, you are teaching completion. Every time you resist an easy escape, you are teaching self-control. These lessons accumulate quietly, but they are permanent. This is why real change often feels anticlimactic. There is no sudden transformation, no dramatic moment where everything clicks. Instead, one day, you notice that starting is easier than before, that quitting feels less automatic, that focus lasts a little longer. These are signs that the brain has updated its predictions. Discipline begins to feel less like force and more like alignment. You are no longer dragging yourself forward. You are moving with fewer internal obstacles. At this stage, many people make a mistake. They raise the difficulty too quickly. They assume that because things feel easier, they should now push much harder. But discipline grows best when it is respected. When you continue to challenge yourself gently without triggering fear or resentment. Remember this principle. The brain resists sudden change, but it welcomes gradual expansion. If you want discipline that lasts, you must protect the system that creates it. This also means forgiving yourself when you slip. Not because failure is good, but because overreaction damages the training process. When you miss a day and respond with harsh self-criticism, you reintroduce threat, and the brain learns again that effort leads to pain. Instead, you simply return, calmly, quietly, without drama. That return is far more important than perfection. This is the kind of discipline that changes lives. Not the one built on pressure, but the one built on understanding. You stop fighting your brain and start working with it. And this is why, after truly absorbing these ideas, your brain will not be the same as before. Not because you learned something new, but because you see yourself differently. You see every action as a vote, every moment of discomfort as training, every small choice as shaping who you are becoming. From this point forward, discipline is no longer a distant ideal. It is something you practice unconsciously through how you live each ordinary day. You no longer wait to feel ready. You no longer wait for motivation. You simply act in ways that slowly make discipline inevitable. That is the quiet power of mental training. And once you experience it, there is no going back.